Okay. So I'm calling to order the Thursday, December 20th, 2012 meeting of the Planning and Transportation Commission. Roll call shows that 4 commissioners are present, and absent are Chair Bresic, Vice Chair Moisen, and Commissioner Junaid. This is an opportunity for public comment on an item not on the calendar. If anybody wants to speak on an item not on the calendar, this is your opportunity. Seeing no takers, we'll move on to consent calendar. And on the consent calendar, the minutes of December 6, 2012. Any comments, changes, corrections to those minutes? Don't all speak at once.
I didn't see anything.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes as is.
And I'll second that.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody nay? So it passes 4-0. Next item on our agenda is 11D03 Safeway 161st Street. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. As the Commission is well aware, in January of this year, the new Safeway store on First Street was approved, a 53,000 square foot approximately market to replace the existing 22,500 square foot market. That project followed an extensive review and analysis and design review before receiving approval. Tonight they're asking for a change that really only affects the interior of the building, but given how the codes in effect when the project was approved measure building height, this change, while it does not change the building's height, exterior height, footprint, square footage, or parking requirements, it does require a Planning and Transportation Commission review with a recommendation going to the City Council. So that's what we're considering tonight. Essentially, and as you can see in the attached plans, what Safeway would like to do is eliminate the drop ceiling and move forward with an exposed truss ceiling, which then also allows them to incorporate natural light skylights, and resulting in both natural light, which is a benefit, and also a much more interesting architectural ceiling system. However, technically, that does cause the building to be measured from 30 feet, where the drop ceiling is, to roughly 38 or 37 feet. So that's what's before the Commission tonight. When the project was initially approved, the downtown public benefit findings were made to allow the exterior parapet to be 39 feet tall instead of the code limit, which was 38 feet tall. And then the interior parapet, which hides the bulk of the equipment, was actually allowed to go up to 50 feet, but that was interior to the building and beyond the line of sight. So both the Commission and Council supported those public benefit exceptions. And the benefit findings were based on the fact that we were getting a new store with presence on Foothill. We're getting a redeveloped and expanded anchor store downtown, which not only provides a service but brings shoppers downtown, particularly supermarkets. Increased revenues in terms of sales tax and property tax, and also, lastly, that they would be installing a large portion of the First Street streetscape improvements. So that's what the public benefit findings were based on when the project was first approved, and we're recommending that those same findings be used to allow this drop ceiling change. So that's the matter before the Commission.
And then, James, I sent you a question. I just want to reiterate it so that other people are aware of it, which is that the code has changed, and that the new code, this building still meets those requirements as far as height.
This project's being reviewed under the old codes for both statutory reasons and the fact that this application was made before that new code went into effect.
Right.
But essentially, the request would be exactly the same, because the changes we made no longer measure a building to a drop ceiling, it measures it to the roof. So you'd be essentially hearing the same request. And again, the building wouldn't look any different.
Right, that was my point, that the new code says that it's whatever we approve, 35, 37 feet.
Yes, exactly.
And therefore, if we had the new code when this came through originally, it would just be the same public exceptions that we would have.
Given the nature of a supermarket of this size downtown, we would have supported the same public benefit findings.
What is the new code? What's the height?
About 38 feet.
38 feet.
Yeah.
This is higher.
Well, because this is being reviewed under the old code, it's being measured to the new exposed ceiling. The new code measures to the top of the roof deck.
But technically, it doesn't meet either the old code nor the new code with this change.
That's correct.
Okay.
But I do make the point that when you're dealing with a 50,000 square foot market or
Right.
an auto dealership or, a theater, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we would support public benefit findings for because they're just different buildings than traditional two-story mixed-use buildings.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? The applicant would like to make a presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is William Carazella. I'm a real estate manager for Safeway Corporation. And yes, I'd like to, James did a great job at giving us some background, but I'll quickly run through where we're at and what we're asking for this evening. I want to give you a little overview of the project. I'll provide a brief background. I'll talk about project design and what's gone into our project and why we are here tonight. Give you quick update on the current status, and then we'll talk about the ceiling height revision proposal. And I have Ken Lowney with me from Lowney Architects to talk about the architectural impact. So the background is, as you all probably know, the project was approved in January of 2012. We received an exception for public benefit. Some of the reasons were the anchor store presence that would bring more customers into downtown, to improve the downtown aesthetic, design elements, so on and so forth. And again, I think James outlined a lot of these, so I'll push on through. Project design. When we started this project, Safeway was unfamiliar with what was happening in the city of Los Altos. And as we've become more and more aware, our objective with the design of this store since we were approved last January is to really add vitality to the shopping experience and really complement what we picked up on that is happening in the city. And part of our design there's been a challenge because of the configuration of the building. As you see in my slide, the building measures 380 feet wide by 125 feet deep, which is not conventional for a Safeway store. It's almost 100 feet wider than what we normally build. And as I mentioned, we're constantly now, as we go through the process and tune into what's happening in the city, we're attempting to meet the changing dynamics of the downtown Los Altos community, so we fit in and we're presenting a store that really is in keeping with what you're trying to create in this city. With that said, in July of this year, we came back to the Planning and Traffic Commission with some design features that grew from our effort to really create a fantastic store inside that created a flow in there that brought in the design elements we wanted in a store like this, and we were approved with some of these upscale design features. The process of design continues as we get more and more into the detail. This is a rendering of what the store would look like as currently approved. We added in July, as you will recall, we added the downstairs gathering area where people can sit and enjoy a coffee outside. There's a stairway to come up into the building. We added the brick tower element. We expanded the terrace upstairs. Inside the store, we were intent on creating an upscale design that we really felt fit the community. And that's what led us to why we're here tonight, because we were looking to do something other than our standard building with the drop ceiling and with the floor tiles that we typically put in a Safeway. We said, how do we make this extra special? And that's when we looked at taking out the drop ceiling and putting in skylights and really brightening up the shopping experience, adding vitality to the project, putting in concrete floors. We're looking at design features in this building we've never done before. We're looking to hide some of the refrigeration units that lines that, because of the podium nature of the store, we can put those under the store, keep them out of the site from our customers, and create the kind of environment that we want and we think fits into the community. We've put all of the ductwork around the edge of the store, so it wouldn't come through the store and be seen. It's going to be around the edge. There will be some drop ceiling to cover that, but the whole store inside will be open to the ceiling, which we think creates a marketplace-type atmosphere. So that's driven our design here. Current status is we've prepared drawings. We submitted those to the city earlier this week. The design does include the open ceiling with skylights. In November, we realized that that design was non-compliant with city code. And we have sort of encountered a little bit of we're a little bit hat in hand, if I may say, with that, because we have proceeded with this design, and we're now before you for your recommendation and hopefully then City Council approval to go with the design we've created. Short of this, we would have a little bit of a we would have to somewhat go back to the drawing board and create a plan that would be compliant with the city code as it's currently written. So we're hoping to avoid that, and we want to keep on the schedule, and we're looking for your support this evening to stay on that path. So that's where we're at currently. We've been working with the city, with the streetscape design, and with Jeff Morris on his project to see if we can collaborate and come up with a schedule that meets everyone. So that's where we're at today. As far as the specifics tonight, the top drawing you see is a cross-section of our building. That shows the interior ceiling where the red arrow is. In the bottom drawing, it's the exact same cross-section, except obviously we don't have a drop ceiling in the building. So what the ceiling height revision is, we're requesting to remove the interior drop ceiling. As James mentioned, there's no change to the exterior of the building. We're motivated to do this to add vitality to the retail environment and enhance the customer experience. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken Lowney, who's going to speak to the advantage of high ceilings and skylights and what we'd like to create in this building.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Ken Lowney with Lowney Architecture. My firm designed the building that you guys are reviewing. Let's see if I can make this work. So we all know when ceiling heights don't work, when the space feels wrong. Being John Malkovich was humorously all about this. And we also know when spaces feel generic. And in grocery stores, this used to be okay. But now when planners are thinking about designing new cities and upgrading current cities for more sustainable, more dense living, it's more about placemaking. Grocery stores have taken the role, along with schools and libraries, of being central to placemaking and how people use and identify and interact with each other. So it's no longer really appropriate for cities, particularly in the Bay Area, to have that kind of amenity. So the approach that we took with Safeway was to really design a grocery store that was, fitting for the profile of Los Altos, which is a highly educated, wonderful, forward-thinking place. And part of that, the outside of the building, we think we got that pretty good. But the next step, of course, is the interior finishes of it. So when you have a civic building, which I would say that is our intent, and I believe we've accomplished that with this grocery store, to get that impression and that sense for people as they pass by it or walk into it, the kind of space that is in the building should correspond to the kind of building that you have on the outside of the building. And here, this is the San Francisco Ferry Plaza, which is one of the preeminent, what would you call it, open markets in the country. And if you can imagine what this space would be like if you chopped it just above those arches. You'd still have, Bobette's Larder and the great cheese places, but it wouldn't have this feeling. And so part of this is the symbolic nature of tall spaces. Tall spaces make us feel better. And typically in public type buildings, we have high spaces. They're symbolic of us being embedded in a larger community. And they also generally they're more comfortable. When you go back to John Malkovich, you're kind of cramped. These spaces are generally instill positive feelings, from pleasure to joy. This is Bill and I were looking at this with Candace also. This is the Galleria in Milan, so this is just completely over the top. But we just love this because it's an extravagant example of just how wonderful space can be and what it can do. Of course, Grand Central Station in New York City, a room at the scale of a city. So these are the kinds of qualities, kinds of spatial features that public type buildings of public import have. They important on the outside, important on the inside, and that is really a public benefit to have that cohesiveness. This is a grocery store I designed in Oakland, and it really feels great. The ceilings are tall. It's very spacious. This is the checkout area. There's lots of light, and it's funny because architecture is like music. It communicates with you in very abstract ways, and what this communicates to people is it does communicate. I see people interacting. I have lunch here, and people they behave in a way that I don't think they would behave if the space were different. It invites different kinds of behavior and different kinds of interactions. So I guess I would ask you to allow us to put in a higher ceiling because we really believe that it would benefit the community, benefit the building. And these decisions are long decisions. It's not about us. These are generations.
Excuse me, whose store is this and where?
This is Whole Foods in Oakland.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. Can you specifically point out the green features associated with actually removing the drop ceiling?
Green features so the green features are associated with natural light. So it reduces energy consumption, and there's Rocky Mountain Institute has done studies correlating moods with natural light. So, I mean, if to go to the broader economy, if you have happier people and they're feeling better, they're probably going to be more productive. So there's a.
So my question about natural light, because I noticed that the photos that we were given, they all seem to be plastic over the thing, and I noticed all the pictures that you showed us were pretty much clear glass or some sort of opaque glass. Is it the intention to do, I mean, not that I don't think it's a design feature, but I'm curious, is it the intent to have the plastic more or to have more of like a glass?
It would probably have some tinting to reduce heat gain.
Okay.
And really, you still get the brightness, and so the mood is correlated with brightness. And it's just the heat gain is the thing that you want to have your cake and eat it too, and the tinting allows you to do that.
Right.
I'm sorry. The pictures that you show of the store that has a drop ceiling, is that a current Safeway location?
This one,
the one in the package.
One is El Segundo, and the other one is Pleasant Hill. Store here is up.
Do you have more presentation?
no, that's it.
We sort of interrupted with questions. Any more questions for the applicant?
I did have one other question. Is this consistent with the Safeway design at San Antonio?
No, different design. That building's going to have rooftop parking, so we couldn't put that feature in. And quite frankly, we didn't put the same effort into that building and really come up with the type of product that we're hoping to do here.
So the original building, if we go back to the sectional drawing, shows a drop ceiling and then a space between the drop ceiling and the steel roof structure. And you're removing the false ceiling, and it begs the question as to whether that whole roof structure can be moved downward, because it looks like there was about 3 feet of space between the false ceiling and the truss structure.
That I can't speak to directly. It's a design issue. I can say I've sat in on a design meeting with refrigeration people, electrical people, the design people with the structural people, and clamoring for space as to what's going to go where. And I would have to get a design person to respond, but to bring that down and take away space, and I'm not sure of the impact on the construction drawings that we've prepared to date would be. I think it would be substantial, but that's just from a layperson sort of view from what I observed in the meeting. I think that's one thing I've learned through this process, is that coordinating all the different disciplines that go into the building is a huge effort, and a lot of the cost, this is a more expensive product for us to design, and a lot of it is in the design work because we can't hide things up there. So if we squish the space down further and they have to go back and resituate things, I think it would cause some serious delay, and I'm not sure what of the existing construction drawings would be of use to continue with and how much it'd have to be recreated. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, and the original schedule, and this came to us in January, was that this store was going to be constructed in parallel with the San Antonio store, and then in July, my understanding was that the store was going to be closed end of December, and construction started after the first of the year. What I've heard through the rumor mill is that the store is not going to be closing until March, with construction not starting till the spring. Can you give us an update on what the construction schedule is and what impact a change or not in this latest change would have on the construction cycle?
Very good question, and the reason for those delays is exactly what we're speaking about tonight, is the challenges of design of this building. So where we're at now is we are on schedule to go forward in March. That's our target date to start. That's what we've been working with the city and with Jeff Morris on the next property. As far as coordinating our efforts to redesign this building with a drop ceiling in there, would there be some delay to that? I'm not sure how much that delay would be. It would be it would take us some time to retool and create those drawings and then come forward, and would cause us some time, would further delay the project. I hate to say that, but that's where we're at, and that's why we're asking for your help.
And you said one of your stores, your recent stores, is it El Cerrito, has the eliminated?
Has the drop ceiling, yes.
El Cerrito did.
Yes.
And when was that building completed?
That opened, I believe it was, I joined Safeway in July of 11, and it was shortly after I joined the company, so somewhere in the fall of 2011. And Pleasant Hill, the other store you have there, was a few months after that, probably early part of 2012 when Pleasant Hill opened.
Okay. Ronnie, did you have a question?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm prepared for
All right.
discussion.
Okay. Thank you. I think we've questioned you out.
Great.
All right, and I will now open public comment for all. Would you like, young man, would you like to make public comment? You're the only member of the public here this evening. We don't mean to put you on the spot. All right, and so I will close public comment.
We may have virtual public.
We may have virtual public, but they cannot comment. At least we haven't gotten the technology to date. So, Mike, would you like to throw in your 2 cents here?
So when I was when we looked at the change in the ceiling height of a building and made that change, I think this is an example of why this is important why it's important that we made that change, because changing a ceiling height has no bearing on a building height. And the fact that this got passed with 30-foot interior ceiling and now we're being asked, can we raise it under the old code, it just shows me this is exactly why that change is so important, because it really has no bearing on the outside of it. When I look at the public benefit, I think that the benefit of having more natural light, and I'm hoping that there's a lot more skylight as possible. I think, like the picture of the ferry building, if you notice, it's like continuous down an aisleway, but the amount of natural light that comes in and the less electrical usage, I think, is a real big benefit in energy consumption, and as well as providing a much more happier space. I agree with what you commented, or what you showed us, and all those buildings, the natural lighting and just the feeling that you can see outside, and it really gives people a benefit to feel like they're part of a bigger world than just being inside a store. And especially when you look at these pictures with the drop ceiling, I just feel like it's a very confined space. And I have to chuckle, I'm 6'8", so when you see space and you're just like, okay, I feel enclosed. So in general, I really like what's done. I think that, when was listening to your questions about, could we reduce the building height because now we don't need as much? I mean, I think that's a real interesting question. I'm not sure if that makes, a difference. How much, if you dropped it down a foot, would that matter or not? Have thoughts, mixed thoughts about it. But I think that's a really great comment, because what I heard during the presentation was most of the electrical and ventilation that would be above a ceiling is going to be gone because it'll be underneath. So I think that's a good comment. I don't know if that's warranted enough to say, we really want to see a 1 foot drop or 2 foot drop in the height of the building, given that I think it's close to being under what the current code says.
May I speak to that for a moment?
Sure.
So thank you. So if you look at the image of the building and to the if we lowered the elevations were composed at that height, so it actually would be a complete design.
Right.
We'd start over again, because we were very careful about the size of the glass, the proportions, the size of the parapets. We spent quite a bit of time trying to get this thing right. So we would really have to go back to first principles if we lower this building.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you're right on. I think it would make it it would change the sizing, and it changes proportions and does a lot of other things at the same time that you don't want to deal with right now.
Right, and we lose that sense of space,
Yeah.
which is one of the real motivators for us to ask for this.
Right. So that's my thinking.
Okay. Jim?
Thanks, John. Just to kind of open my comments, I actually did have some conversations with, I think Mike actually did as well.
I got to say, I had a phone call, but I didn't have our conversation was not about the building, just that I had questions for staff.
So I had a couple of conversations with Candace, and she actually asked me if I had any questions ahead of time. I actually indicated no, and we can, I think that this presentation has actually answered all the questions I had. I personally think that this design change is kind of a no-brainer. I think it actually adds a lot of great interior natural light. I'm a big fan of the San Francisco Ferry Building. I think that addition to the city, just when I actually was living there, it was very obvious. I think it was actually a great example of placemaking within a very much a metropolitan environment where people can actually meet in front of storefronts within, an interior building, which is quite a nice addition to the city. So if we can actually have more examples of that in Los Altos, I think that would be a great thing. And I think this is actually a great step, and I am very much in support of this. The only one question I actually had was whether there was any way to improve some of the architectural elements of the ceiling itself, right? Because obviously, when you actually remove the drop ceiling, you actually expose a lot of the kind of the industrial nature of the ceiling. And what I'm fearful of is that it adds the natural light, but at the expense of actually exposing this potential industrial nature of the interior building, which, if done poorly, is really not in very good taste, right? So I think that I am definitely in support of this. I just want to make sure that kind of the staff and as part of the building process, we get the ceiling right so that it actually adds all the benefits as opposed to kind of adding the kind of the potential ugliness associated with, not having a ceiling above you. So.
Thank you, Jim. Ronit?
I agree with Mike. I think this is the poster child for why the last code was nonsensical. I mean, if you if the code is talking about building height, but yet it's measuring by ceiling height, then it's really not. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So, I like the change. I think I'm going to benefit immensely from it. I don't know if it's a public benefit, but I know I'll benefit from it. 'Cause when I'm not here at home or at work, I'm at the grocery store. So I like your comment, Jim, also about getting it done right. And I think that the examples that you showed were really elegant ways of displaying a ceiling. And I think in looking at the photos that you've shown us of the other store that you've done it, I think that I'm hoping that it will be done in a more elegant way than this store was done, because I think this is an example of a too industrial-looking exposed roof. So I'm hoping that the documents that you've already presented to the building department accomplish that. And in terms of, I see the public benefit as being the green features in terms of additional light and additional natural light and reduction of energy consumption. And with respect to reducing the building height, I don't see a need for it. I wouldn't agree to that. I think that the elevations have been approved at every level, from the planning department to the Planning and Transportation Commission to the City Council, with a lot of feedback that we got from the public. I mean, we've had a couple hearings on this and a lot of input, and they got that building height because of the public benefit that was discussed. Well, nothing is being changed by this change, so I don't see any reason why we should muck with that. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. So let me make a couple comments here. I like the destination. I don't like the ride, and so I'm going to talk more about the ride first than the destination. Well, let me talk about the destination for a second. The destination, I think having more natural light, I think creating more space is a really good thing. Unfortunately, the examples you showed us are the Costco version, and I want the Whole Foods version in terms of exposed members. And I would suggest that we might want to make it as a requirement before this goes to council that we get some 3D drawings, something for the council to look at, so that we get to see something that looks good. Grand Central Station in New York and the Ferry building in the Galilea in Milan are wonderful examples, but El Cerrito ain't it. If you're going to go to that level in terms of change, I would like it to be not only environmentally beneficial, but I think it should be architecturally beneficial. So I'd like my fellow commissioners to think about that, to make it easier for the council and the public, none of whom are here tonight, to understand the rationale for doing so. The place where I don't like the ride is that I think this is being done piecemeal. This feels like it should have been a variance or should have come in as part of the package originally, not being done as piecemeal. We've had instances, not necessarily in this case, where people have gamed the system looking at increased height and the facts here don't work in your favor. And I'm not suggesting that what is being proposed isn't good, but the facts don't work in your favor towards, it appearing to some that this was a way to get around the height limit. And I'm not ascribing intent here. All I'm saying is we have a lot of people who play Monday morning quarterback in this town, and I don't like giving people additional opportunities to fill that role. So I will support this. I would like my fellow commissioners consider giving our city council additional graphics and making sure that those graphics lead to the intention. So with that, any more discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion? Jolie, you're going to make a comment. Hi, Jolie.
Sorry, I was late. I was in a meeting with some council members, and the city manager got way late. Sorry. I just want to clarify for the record with the community benefit findings that the council will be making. Legally, this doesn't need a variance, and I know there is the community benefit findings versus going through a variance process. And with the community benefit findings, a variance wouldn't be needed. So those two, they're separate. They're separate processes, but this is definitely one that's going through the community benefit findings. So
Okay.
just for the record, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying the record. I said it felt more like a variance as opposed to being necessarily a variance, but I understand important to clarify for the record, so thank you.
Community benefit, it comes up, we have that conversation.
Understood. All right. Anybody like to make a motion?
I actually liked your suggestion that at the city council, they have an opportunity to see what the proposed ceiling is going to actually look like. So that,
The interior of that ceiling, right?
yeah, so that it's a sort of an elegant version.
I would definitely support that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how to put that in a motion. So do we make the motion to approve 11D03 of Safeway Incorporated at 160 First Street to removing the interior drop ceiling to allow the exposed truss ceiling and skylights with the, and then I don't know what the word, recommendation that the requirement that the city council sees the full drawings of what the interior will look like with the new ceiling? An actual depiction of the finished ceiling. And
Okay.
that would be my motion.
Okay, and it'll be a recommendation to council, not an approval.
A recommendation?
Recommendation to council.
Second.
Okay. All right, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes 4-0. Good luck with your project. We'll look forward to seeing a new Safeway, hopefully soon.
And then, now that we're done with that, I had a question, actually, while we're here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we have
Which-
other business, but sure.
Right, well, just because I was talking with James about this, and that is with the new building code. I know you want to say, but because I just want to make sure that we're all understanding with the new building code. Oh, could you go back? That's all right. But the brick building, the elevator shaft, et cetera, does not, is part of, and James, you and I were talking about this, because with the new building code, and Safeway's a great thing, where the left side of it,
Is not part of, right.
right, the height, even though it's higher, doesn't come into play, but it's really the rest of the roof
Right.
that's shown.
The parapets are,
elements meet both our current code and
Right, the tower elements don't count towards the
Right.
top to the height.
right, they're considered design elements.
Right.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Next, we move on to commission reports and direction for future agenda items. Anybody been to a council meeting
I was
lately?
at a council meeting.
Okay,
Hold on, I have my notes.
she has her notes.
There were two
Was it the
matters.
new council meeting?
It was the new council.
Great.
And how is the new council?
New council's great.
Good.
One second. I took a picture of my notes so that I wouldn't forget.
I have an item if you want me to talk while you're searching. And it's, my question is, and it's really for Commissioner Chang, is the Traffic Commission, which is what this has been incorporated with, dealt with a lot of issues such as the Neighborhood Traffic Management Plan, the rubric for dealing with traffic issues and stuff. And I'm not sure what the previous Traffic Commission, things that were in that process that are we missing, are we lacking, that we should ask staff to bring up in future meetings so that we can continue those issues or conversations now that we're both planning and traffic?
Actually, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, one of the things that I want to make sure is that we can ensure some continuity in terms of the traffic issues from the original Traffic Commission into this group. However, a number of the things that we were actually working on was actually in the state of revision, especially with the NTMP program, which has been in existence for probably about 12 years or so. But we were, I will put it this way, there were, over the history of the program, the original intention of the program really wasn't served appropriately. And I think that forced us into a state where we were actually constantly making revisions to it. And I'm not sure at this point whether even, is the NTMP program currently active, or are there new applications?
Well, the program is currently active, and this group will respond to NTMP applications and Safe Route to School applications. Special studies, you would typically talk to council about that at your joint meeting, and that would be in your work program for the next year. The update to the NTMP is still struggling. That, but it doesn't halt the program. The program would still work under the existing program.
Yeah. So I guess we're actually in a kind of a reactive mode in the NTMP sense, right? So we're waiting for applications to come through. I'm not sure if it actually makes sense to take a more active role with the NTMP revisions.
Training. Training.
That's kind of unclear to me.
Yeah, but I guess I'm wondering, we're having traffic issues come up in town. I mean, anybody who looks out at 4:30 in the afternoon and looks at San Antonio Road knows that we've got problems, and I'm wondering, there's an interesting question as to what role, if any, we would have on those kinds of things. But, I mean, it's not for discussion now, but it's an interesting question as to whether there are things that were ongoing from the old Traffic Commission or things that we see now that we may want to agendize in the future.
So, and the short answer is this group will be doing what the Traffic Commission did, but you'll also be doing development review, which has its own traffic impact issues. And then there is a scheduled training. It was a secondary training to the green building training that David provided. And it's training on how the NTMP works for those who haven't been involved with it, and how the Safe Routes to School programs work, and probably whatever large projects are underway right now. Then we can provide an update where the NTMP is. It was with a sort of a volunteer task force for years, and I think now it's kind of moved over to a staff person, so I think that can probably get done in 2013 pretty easily.
One of the things that actually provide a lot of continuity was actually the presence of a police officer or some representative from the traffic engineering area with the city, and maybe that's actually something that's needed for kind of future discussions as traffic issues actually come up in front of PTM, our group.
I think we forwarded that comment to our police chief, and I don't think I've had a chance to talk to them about that yet, but that's probably something that you'd want to talk to council about the idea of having a traffic officer at every meeting.
When we do our joint meeting, is that what when you're saying that's when we talk to council?
Yeah.
And I just have a side note that because I spoke with Jen Gustafson about, we were talking about some of the 4-lane roads that are becoming 2 lanes, like when you go up, I forgot, Miramonte or Springer, right? That's 4 lanes in Mountain View and 2 lanes. And I was at a Mountain View session that they had about the routes to school, and they're actually now, Jim's comment was Mountain View used to give us a lot of pressure to change to 4 lanes. They're now looking at road diets to make those back to 2 lanes.
Yeah.
So I was really, it's nice to hear that maybe we got it right and they're the ones
Right.
that need to change.
Yeah, when we updated our circulation element in 2002, that was a big focus of it.
Yeah.
Just getting away from all roads had to carry more capacity to move faster, and now it should be slowing traffic down and being.
Exactly, and it seems like Mountain View's got a different perspective now.
Ronnie, did you find your notes?
Yes, so the two issues that were discussed were the change in the commercial zone in the area near where the Lucky's was, where there was the, I'm forgetting what that district is called.
It's a CN,
Away.
and it's referred to as Woodland Plaza. but
Woodland
it's
Plaza.
CN district.
So they were supportive, and they approved the change, and they had a qualification related to that retail be required to be on the ground floor. Is that right?
For new construction.
For
They
new
wanted to
construction.
differentiate, if it's an existing building, office can be allowed by right on the ground floor. If it's new construction, which has to go to the PTC and City Council in any event, that whether it be office on the ground floor or not be decided during that process, through a CUP process.
And
Yep.
And on that one, they actually asked me to address the discussion that we had. And one of the questions that I got from Jeannie was whether she thought it needed to come back to us to assess what that change that they needed to make. And I said I did not think it needed to come back for that. But what's relevant is that we may have opportunities, if asked, to, if there's significant changes, we may have opportunity to bring things back for discussion if you ever think that that's worthwhile. So that's something to consider when you're attending a city council meeting and discussing an issue. And then the second PTC issue that they discussed was the new Palo Alto Medical Foundation building. And again, they had a lot of community discussion, and they did approve it as well, making a lot of the comments that we did about all the efforts that they made to deal with that site. So it was a very similar discussion that they had than that we had. That was it for PTC.
Great. Anything anybody wants to agendize for a future council meeting? We need three of the four of us to make something added to the agenda. No? Nothing else? Okay. On that jolly note, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, wish everybody a happy holiday and happy New Year, and look forward to seeing everybody January 20th, 17th, 18th. There is no meeting on the 4th. Everybody's taking the 5th and therefore taking off the 4th. Oh, I'm